Yes.
Well, thank you. Thank you on day 2 of this great event. I appreciate everyone being here. This session right now, for the next 40 minutes, we're going to talk about Saudi Arabia, the innovation nation, the fourth industrial revolution, and digital transformation. So a lot has been said over the last couple days about Saudi Arabia. Well, look who's here. Welcome, Mark.
Hey,
Mark just arrived from Saudi Arabia only this moment. A lot has been said about Saudi Arabia as the largest economy in the region, certainly barriers to entry being lowered, a lot of access to the economy. Things are happening and changing in Saudi Arabia at a very exponential rate. And we want to explore a little bit for the next 20 or 30 minutes. What does that mean? What does that mean to entrepreneurs? What does that mean to markets, to the business possibilities and opportunities, and the challenges that exist in Saudi Arabia? So what I have here is assembled a fantastic professional panel of experts who have spent their careers or their lives in Saudi Arabia to explore this concept. We have represented here small business, educational system, access to ministries and policy making, and large business operating in Saudi Arabia. So we can really give a good breadth of the technology, the capabilities, and the challenges. I'll just introduce my panel very briefly. Dr. Mohammed Al-Ansari, who is one of the authors of the innovation policy and advisor to ministries in Saudi Arabia. Ms. Dr. Amal Dokan, who's Babson Global College Director of Entrepreneurship. Mr. Liam Hurley, who's Vice President of Emerson Automated Systems for Saudi Arabia. And Mark Stevens, who is a startup expert and CEO of a small company who's dealing in blockchain technology to master the problem of remittances. Thank you very much for all of you for being here. And if you wouldn't mind, and we'll start with you, Dr. Mohammed, just take a few minutes, maybe 1 minute, and explain what it is you do, what it is that drives you. But please take no more than 1 or 2 minutes.
Thank you, Craig. Normally it takes me days to go ahead and relate to where I am and where I come from. But in short, I'm a graduate of Saudi Aramco. I spent about 25 years with Aramco heading the technology program, all technologies that was developed by Aramco, been handled within my department. Before that, I created the intellectual property system for Saudi Aramco, and thereafter for different universities and entities within Saudi Arabia. As I graduated from Aramco, I started pursuing my dream that everything that has been done in Aramco is to be transferred to universities throughout the kingdom. So we started, or at least try to help universities throughout the kingdom to create innovation system, intellectual property and technology, and seeing these technology go all the way to the market. That's probably the bottom line. Recently, I've taken a big challenge to go into the IP commercialization. This is intellectual property commercialization by taking 10 patents, براءة اختراع, from Saudi Aramco for a technical device called inspection, non-destructive testing inspection that can detect. Yes, and I took it to the market. That's in very short. It didn't take a minute.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Just a brief introduction. We're going to get into some good content here in a moment.
So,
Please, Amal.
quick note, I mean, most of what I do is in the field of education, entrepreneurship education mainly. So to what he does on IP regulations and all of these stuff, this is what we need, because when we push researchers, scientists, you know, to take their inventions from the lab to the market, we need to make sure that all these regulations also do exist. It makes our life harder if it doesn't really exist. I also work a lot with startups around the region and the globe sometimes, training mainly, and I work with a lot of corporates on innovation and just instilling new mindsets. So my job is around thinking this way and how can we shift it to a different direction where we can see things differently.
Outstanding. Thank you. Liam.
Thank you.
Shukran, Craig. Sabah al khair. I suppose I'm the odd man out in this panel. I feel, you know, a little bit out of my depth with the wealth of knowledge around startups and innovation that we have on the panel. I work for Emerson Automation Solutions, but we do have a direct connection to startups and entrepreneurs, especially in Kingdom, where we try to use innovative technological solutions to support our customers achieving top quartile performance in operation and project execution. And in doing so in Kingdom, what we do is we try to engage with startups, with entrepreneurs, with small to medium enterprises, to support us along development chain and manufacturing supply chain as well.
Excellent, thank you. Now, to everyone in the audience, I'd like you to give Mark a round of applause. He only got his visa this morning, jumped in the car, went through 8 stops on the causeway, and walked onto the stage as you saw him just moments ago.
Thank you.
Shukran, shukran. Thanks, Craig. Yeah, it's nice to be back in Bahrain. I've been based in Saudi across the causeway for a few years now. In the trenches, as we say, part of the fintech conversation, looking to bring blockchain innovations to cross-border payments.
Great. Well, welcome all. And
Thanks, Greg.
I truly appreciate you all being here. And thank you to Unbound and the Bahrain EDB for making all of this possible. So let's get into some dialogue. We'll start with you, Dr. Mohammed. You've seen a lot happening in Saudi Arabia, and particularly in the last 5 years or so. Saudi wants to be the heartbeat and the pulse of innovation and entrepreneurship. What's the landscape? Lay out the landscape and tell us what you see happening in the next 5 years.
If I can answer that question rightfully, I can write a book and make billions of dollars. It's kind of interesting. We are living in Saudi Arabia a dream. Saudi Arabia, if you take it through generation, look at it this way. 30 years of human capital. And that started from the 1920 up to the end of 1940s. That's a whole generation building the human capital, building Saudi Arabia, roads, educating people, starting Aramco, and starting different organization, railroads, TV. Now comes the second part, which is the relationship capital. And again, for another generation, 30 years, started the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, and all the way to the 80s a little bit. And the beauty that after that came the third generation, which is the structured capital. You build human capital and you develop the people of Saudi Arabia, and then you build a relationship, and you brought technologies from outside, and you build relationship and collaboration. The structured capital started from the 2000, where you sort of identified and labeled everything you have developed as experience, technologies, into something that is monetized. Now the future is coming now, where you make really value of all these 3 generations. Sometime when I look at the programs, Saudi Arabia, currently there are about 12 programs. If you go to the detail, it's so much amazing, these programs and the KPI that related to them. I'll share with you just a glimpse of where these programs and KPI can relate to entrepreneurs and startup companies and even individual, you know, one-on-one, including myself as well. Now, the program of Saudi Arabia. You have finance improvement, finance regulation, bringing finance from investment from the outside, Hajj and Umrah. You have legislation. You have innovation. And these are programs that are so huge. When I look at the KPIs that involve some of them, they are really so much easy to do. Nonetheless, a huge opportunity. I want to call a few of these KPIs.
Well, if I may, because I want to pick on that point that you just said, and if I may relay that over to you, Amal, from the education standpoint. You see a global side. Dr. Mohammed, you're talking about the internal side, but from the outside, Saudi Arabia wants to be the innovation hub, not just of the region and MENA, but globally. And so you see the education component outside. I know you're off to Beirut soon for an educational program. What's going on from the outside perspective on the educational platform? Can we really drive Saudi to become part of the global innovation community?
Well, I think there's already a lot of measures that we see. I mean, the comparison of what's happening today when it comes to the education and the universities in the school level, even in a company's level and training level, you know, it's moved really fast in the past few years in a magnificent way. It's actually, you can see it obvious from my trips when we travel around, you know, there's countries that took a long time to get to that. There's others that are still trying to include these types of like programs and education into their programs. In Saudi today, we see most of the universities today are actually putting the entrepreneurship programs, for example. And students are becoming more aware that I need this tool and I need this skill in order to be accepted into a big corporation. I need to be part of a company in order to learn, that mindset and experience. So I think there's a lot that's going on. And we're trying to bring the best. Yes, we used to bring everything from, international institutions. Today you see a lot of local talents who have been abroad and they're trying to localize the experiences and put it in the right perspective for the audience. So I believe there's a lot of entities that are already pushing for this. The Ministry of Education putting the entrepreneurship now courses in schools. And that we didn't see, a long time ago. And now we see it happening in less than a year. And it's going to be released but next year as the pilot have started. Why do we need that education? Are we really hitting into an innovation, field and area? Yes, we are. We do have a huge infrastructure. We do have R&D facilities. We have a lot of research. We have a lot of these patents. Now it's time to educate. How do I push this to the market? How could that become my day-to-day operations, that I don't just do R&D, but before thinking of the research, how do I really consider the customers? How do I consider the market? And that's the type of shift that we need to push more for, but it's already being instilled. So you do have and see the seeds over there. It's just how do we make it a norm? That's the type of work that I think we need to focus on.
Well, another great segue, Amal, to talk to you, Liam, about what you see in your world. So you're representing multinationals. Saudi Arabia traditionally, since the discovery of oil in the late 20s and 1930s, has been the domain of large business, large corporate multinationals that have covered everything. Now, Amal's saying the mindset is opening up even through colleges. In my own experience, I know even into the elementary and high schools about the entrepreneurship mindset. What's that mean to large business? Is it still the domain of large business, or is large business able to tap into this entrepreneurship framework?
I think it's interesting. It's interesting to hear Amal's point of view, and sometimes I worry that as a large business, that we're somewhat divorced from the reality that of the struggles that are faced on the ground by entrepreneurs and startups. That said, I look forward to that, yeah. And we are open for that, and I think that's the key message, is from a large business perspective, we see in Kingdom the emergence of Saudi Vision 2030 as a bit of an inflection point. And we're being driven. In there you can see documented goals around diversification, industry and employment, job creation, promotion of technology, promotion of small to medium enterprises. And we feel that and when we engage with the large stakeholders like Dr. Mohammed's alma mater in Saudi Aramco and some of the massive global organizations like SABIC and even the utility sector. That's why we invest in those areas. We invest in our differentiation points. We invest in our competitive advantage. And that's why we invest in R&D in Kingdom. That's why we're in Dhahran Techno Valley, because we feel that engaging with small to medium enterprises and entrepreneurs in Kingdom will add to the value proposition that we have in Emerson and helps us to differentiate and will give us access to the major opportunities. The other thing then is that once we do, when we find those opportunities for small to medium enterprises and entrepreneurs and startups, is we can then access that global network.
So I'm going to put you on the spot for a moment, Liam, and I know I said I wouldn't do this, but there are entrepreneurs, individuals, small businesses here sitting in the audience looking at us. How does a small entity, a single individual, knock on the door of a multinational conglomerate like Emerson, $40 billion valuation company? It's this giant monolith and one single person wanting to sell a good solution. How do you get in the front door or even the side door?
Well, I'm at the front door, Craig, and I'm not that behemoth that you've just described. But I don't want to simplify it. I know from a startup perspective, that's perhaps not the perspective. It's more like what you've described. But I think, to be fair, and I'm going to give you some credit, even though you did put me on the spot, the organizations that you run in Dhahran Techno Valley and organizations like that are innovation hubs that engage industrial partners, help to facilitate that engagement. We also have a role to play, and I acknowledge our responsibility and feel a need to understand better the challenges that Amal has described as an example. But I'm sincere in my words when I say that we do see the need to be prepared for IR 4.0, to understand what our what our customers' goals are around digital transformation. And to get there quicker, we will need to be able to tap into the mindset of new startups and entrepreneurs. So we encourage engagement. It's easy for me to say we have an open door. We do have an open door. I think you appreciate that, Craig. And we are willing to look at potential opportunities for investment in our development chain, being part of our supply chain, or even being a partner in terms of synergy as we bring our message out to the major industry.
Great, thank you. Well, Mark, you've seen a lot in Saudi Arabia. Mark has a very interesting story. We won't have time to get deep into your story, but tell us right now what resources are available, or even what resources are lacking for the entrepreneurs, the innovators, the small businesses in Saudi Arabia.
Sure. And, you know, I'd like to address really the co-founders in the audience, because when you're dealing with all the paperwork necessary to pull off your dream and really commit towards a project that no one else sees except you, and you're still on paper, you're going through a lot of development sprints and app development, whatever you're doing, whatever innovation you're focusing on, you're gonna get a lot of negative emails, you're gonna get a lot of negative feedback, but don't be deterred, because they've made it really easier. Because I've been at this maybe 36 months ago, and if you opened up your mouth about startup, they were like, what's that? And things of this nature. And if you tell your story and stick to your story, because it's not always about technology, it's not always about like white papers and deep things. It's really the story you're trying to tell and move customers to a cheaper, more convenient, experience. But these steps that they've made to improve, company formation.
And Mark, if I may, when you say they, are we talking about Sagia?
Yeah, exactly. So, like, we're basically a foreign remote team, and we recently onboarded our first Saudi partner, but we did most of the legwork as foreigners, and we have to come through Sagia. And that is just a paradigm shift, because we're actually on the books as a startup with the same power as the multinational corporations were given, the same considerations, and they've really streamlined it. I'm not saying that like the 3 steps that are on the website is only 3 steps, but it's a huge improvement. And I'll give you a small example about like where you get caught up with extra paperwork that in order to fulfill some of those easy steps. I'm still under a Saudi sponsor. That goes away when we get our CR, but it doesn't go away until you get your CR, so you still have to deal with a Saudi sponsor. And one of those issues was my Saudi sponsor didn't want to give me a letter to say you can go ahead and start your own business. Don't know why, because we're good friends, we hang out all the time, but he was just like, what is he asking me? He's gonna get me in trouble, I'm gonna owe fees and all kinds of stuff like this. But you know, it all worked out. He gave me the letter, and but it takes time. And so what you want to get accomplished in an afternoon, you probably need a good week to actually sit with people, because you can't do this stuff over emails. But having said that, Sagia is like the first time you get somebody from the government authority that will actually reply to you within like 10 minutes. And like, that's really, I mean, it's phenomenal. Yeah. So we're nobody, right? We're a startup. Nobody knows us yet. It's going to take the next 3 years to build our reputation for people to, see what we're trying to bring to the kingdom.
I know you've worked hard and suffered from it. So your message right here this morning is much more positive than I would have thought you have brought. So you're actually telling the entrepreneurs here, it's not as hard as what some people describe it to navigate through registrations, and they don't need to come to Bahrain to do the registrations and come back to Saudi for sales?
No, that was the whole, everyone said everybody's licensed here, and then they go to the kingdom for their sales. And it's like, I settled in Saudi, and I wanted to, be Saudi and reach out to the region from home. And clearly the other GCC markets are equally as important, but when you're there, you shouldn't be like, there shouldn't be a barrier, and those barriers have been reduced, and pretty much allowing foreign companies to take complete ownership of that conversation with the authorities.
Outstanding. Dr. Mohammed, back to you on an issue. Saudi Arabia, by current proven reserves, is set for 70 plus years of oil, the oil economy. Traditional jobs are in oil and gas. We diversify into gas. You know, we're trying to diversify in Saudi Arabia, but it is an oil economy by all means. Digital transformation comes along. So where are the jobs? Are they going to remain in the oil sector? Are they going to remain traditional? Is digital transformation 4.0, cloud computing, robotics, all that goes along with IR 4.0, is this the new paradigm for the up-and-coming generation?
2015, Saudi Arabia reserve was 261 million barrels. We sell about 8 million barrels a day. That takes you to 3.4 billion barrel a year. So in 2016, it should be 261 minus 3.4, but it stays the same, 2016. And we sold, again, 3.5 billion in 1 year. So the year 2017 should be less. It stayed the same. And 2018, it decreases. And the question is, how does it that there was no subtraction of what you sold? One, digitalization helped to go ahead and drill more wells with a better qualification. Old wells, they used to produce 30% oil. With the digitalization and information technology, it allows it to go to 60%. So even the duration that we talked about, the 70 or 80 years, could increase to 100 years and even further. Now, the beauty is that every part of the 80 or 60 or 100 years will bring employments into it. So if you look at digitalization, saying that it could substitute so many of these employments that exist, I think it's the opposite. It's just going to go ahead and create more and more. An example to relate to this, look at the .com when it started. Y2K, for those older dinosaurs who remember it. It was scary, 1999 to 2000. They said that .com will go ahead and kill everybody, no employment and what have you, what have you. And look what have happened. The whole world now is depending on this. The whole employment. So digitalization could be, again, another revolution as the .com and information technology that was created. It's just going to go ahead and make our life much easier. It will open opportunities for entrepreneurs and startups like never before. They just need to go ahead and understand how could they sing the right song to the right investor, and at the same time, look at the investors or the potential collaborator that they are looking for. What is he looking for? Rather than concentrating on your own product, on your own technology, convert the equation and ask the question, what interests him in what I have? And do it that way, and you'll be amazed how many doors could be open to you.
Excellent, very good. Amal, what do you see as the means of attracting global entrepreneurs? Saudis, of course, they're in Saudi and they want to start up small businesses, but what's going to bring people into the kingdom, invest and open up doors? And by the same token, what are some reasons that are going to prevent people from doing that?
So we'll look at the entrepreneurs and the investors who look into Saudi Arabia. I mean, from all the travels and the conferences that we go to, we always get this question right away: how do we penetrate the Saudi market? And I think just 2 points here. Going back to all of the changes that happened with Saudi, and I have registered 3 nationalities recently. It took us 3 months, but we got it done. We celebrated with each one, and we hang the certificates, on the walls. So all these changes, these are signs that actually could encourage others to see that these stories are actually happening. But going back to that perspective, what would attract them? The Saudi market is a very attractive market by nature, and it's becoming more attractive. The rate of growth is really increasing year by year. The number of opportunities that are arising in the kingdom is actually immense. And going back to what we talked about yesterday, it's a young population. It's very digitally savvy, right? So the possibilities for any startup to come and really propose new solutions that will help and enhance the lives of these young people and will make their life better they're going to use it. There's no company that started in the world and came to Saudi and said, oh, nobody actually, have used that service. And we jump on it, we try it, and they actually try to see which one is the best one, and you see that the best will win, actually. So I think there is an intelligence that's being actually created by the young generation that have access, to anything that's happening globally today. And from an investor's point of view, we actually get people who see the fortune that you actually look at. This is growing. It's opening up to international markets. There's a lot of big corporations that are coming and willing to expand. There's a lot of R&Ds that are happening. Kaust alone, do receive these requests. So you've got Sabic and Dow that started this, and then other companies have actually opened their R&Ds. So why do I do R&D? Why would I put all that money over there? So the possibilities, I think, are great, and that's what makes it attractive. What's left now for an investor is to make sure that when I put my money, I'm protected. When I actually invest in a company, I know that I will get my, my deal sorted really quick. Because some of the situations that are happening today, let's get the company opened in Cayman Islands, or let's get a Delaware company registered really quick. I know, I understand it. I don't know what to do in Saudi. What if we flip it? It's already happening. What if we actually show how easy it is to do that, and look into the whole process, and see what didn't work? To his point, Sadia, when we got stuck, we would actually pick up the phone, literally, there's a coordinator number. How do I do this paper? All right, you gotta write this, you gotta do this, you gotta do that. So I think there is response. Why not use it? Our role in Saudi to change that perception and the mindset of the global markets who think we're not penetrable, who think that we're not really open, but we are open today more than any other time. And as an entrepreneur and as a corporate, you need to use that chance. No entrepreneur got it easy. Everyone who went abroad to any country, they had the similar obstacles, right? But we are actually getting that aura of not being easy. So I think that's our role, is to translate that message to entrepreneurs, to investors, to corporate, and pave the way for them.
Well, thank you, Amal. Let me continue that thread with you, Liam, in that Emerson came into the kingdom and invested heavily, in a big way. Of course, they have the assets and the wherewithal to do that. But they made, the corporate leaders made a conscious decision to be in Saudi for long term. Now we're seeing a whole shift in the paradigm. And when we look at, we talked about oil and gas as the baseline for Saudi export, renewables. Nuclear now is entering into the equation. A lot of other technologies which Emerson might be well poised to support. But where do you see the future going from a large business perspective? Traditional energy sector, diversification, which is a major key word in describing the Saudi markets, and how does that factor into the small business?
It's a great point. I echo what was just said. I think it's an extremely exciting time to be. I feel privileged actually to be in Kingdom at this particular moment. I think it is, there's a dramatic change. I don't want to sound like we're a panel that's promoting Sagia, but we also feel the change in Sagia and the support that we need to continue investment. And as you know, we are continuing investment. In terms of the small to medium enterprises, startups, entrepreneurs, I see huge opportunity. And it's not just the energy sector. The goals of digitization, the goals of IR 4.0 are really around efficiency and modernizing plants, modernizing towards improvements in reliability, safety, productivity, energy. They apply across all industry segments. So they apply in nuclear, they apply in alternative energy. And when we reach out to Sagia, and why I see that they play an important role, we look to the future. Why should we invest? And Sagia give us visibility, and it's not just energy, life sciences, pharmaceutical, biopharmaceutical, secondary pharmaceutical, manufacturing industries, food and beverage, mining, all attracting investment into Kingdom today. And we look to the future, we look to why we should invest, and then we look at the opportunities coming out of IR 4.0 and digital transformation, and that's where we see huge opportunities for startups. From Emerson's perspective, be they synergistic partnerships, be they part of our development chain, or be they part of even our supply chain as we manufacture new products that get developed out of the R&D and collaboration that we do drive in Kingdom.
Thank you, Liam. Mark, Abu Cash, your company, is after the remittance space using blockchain technology. Where are you going to be in 5 years?
Oh,
Everywhere.
No, I don't mean where is Abu Cash going to be. Where are you going to be in Saudi Arabia in 5 years? Full support, integration, blockchain immersion, or is that too soon, 5 years?
no, clearly that can definitely happen within 5 years and hopefully 36 months, because that's about the only runway you're actually given before you run out of cash when you get your first seed rounds. But I wanted to sort of address not just the innovation that co-founders bring, but in terms of technology, but also the business models. Because what you do when you sort of throw your pebble into the pool, right, is the ripple effect. And I was dealing with that with government authorities, but also just with operations and building out the roadmap for operations. So you need to locate somewhere, right? Well, they have great business parks coming online in the kingdom, but they're not really designed for startups yet, because they're asking like, $2 million just to finish it, and then another $1 million, and I'm like, that's not really a startup budget. And then I sat down with them, and because basically Aramco bought half the units, and there's still another half units left, and they're really, class, locations. My point is, they took a look at what real estate is doing for startups, and they sort of subdivide one unit for 10 startups, and then their business model changes, and it works when you're able to attract that kind of market, which they didn't really see before, right? So that's like when you jump into the pool, others jump in with you, and they're really excited to have us, and we save money by sharing these kinds of, and when you're talking about blockchain, it's really all about the sharing economy. Blockchain isn't some mystery or miracle technology out there. It's just a different way to look at a database and share it. Whereas traditionally nobody wants to share a database. It's all behind firewalls and locked up in data centers. But the world will be undergoing this paradigm shift, and be able to really establish trust for the first time. So to answer your question, where we want to be, we want to see trust happen like in the way when you talk with your grandparents, where everyone used to know everybody when they grew up in rural communities, and when Bahrain was a lot smarter, because we have awesome Bahraini friends that used to say the water used to be here, and then now you have the whole financial district built up and everything. So you want to have the kind of trust when everyone knew everybody. Before we moved to big cities, modern city life, and huge institutions took over the conversation and what maintained that trust. So blockchain is going to sort of reestablish that for individuals again.
Thanks, and I want to make a plug for a session that's going to start at the other stage immediately after this session ends, blockchain and cryptocurrency for beginners, or in my case, for dummies. Right, so everything I need to know about the foundation will be happening at the other stage.
And I'm actually a beginner too, Craig, because I had to come up to speed when you said IR4. I had no idea what IR4 was. You can say Web 3.0 and I'm all there, but
So we have just a few minutes left in this session. Dr. Mohammed, I want to ask you if you could just 2 sentences, 3 sentences only, market opportunities in Saudi Arabia, addressed to this young audience. Where could they find market opportunities?
Can I have a sort of quick survey? Entrepreneurs, startups? Good, good. We're talking about 50-60% of the audience. Okay, I'm looking at a budget Saudi Arabia. If you look at the budget Saudi Arabia, almost 3/4 of it to almost 40%, 50% education, healthcare. Now the question to these startups, look at these 2 sectors and see where your applications, your thought, your ideas could fit into this, using the concept of digitalization, ease of doing business, making life is better. These are great opportunities. These are the 2. Hajj and Umrah. It's absolutely brilliant kind of area. They got to go, Saudi Arabia got to go from 8 million to 30 million. Hajj and Umrah. Look at the gap. That's huge. So huge. So huge. Another area, just quickly, is increasing the local content. In Saudi Arabia, it's becoming really the motto. We want to go ahead and transfer all technologies to be built in within Saudi Arabia and then export to the outside. They increase the export from whatever percent, 60%. That's a great opportunity for all of you. Think about these sort of outside applications, ideas, thoughts, technologies that relate to one of these sectors, and you will be successful.
Thank you, Dr. Mohammed. Just a few seconds left on this session. Amal, I want to give the last word to you. Market opportunities, how do you penetrate into Saudi markets for this young audience?
It's to me or to Mark? I thought Mark.
It's to you,
it's to
but
me.
anyone can respond on this topic.
No, I can respond to that. So I think the last words that I would say to his points, now opportunities are really big. Our role is to facilitate, find the right places and the right entities that could be, your gateway to the market. There is a lot of entities today that just welcomes people, right? And they want to bring entrepreneurs to Saudi. We know opportunities exist. Our roles become, how do I identify Emerson's needs and Baker Hughes' needs and Aramco's needs, and we put you on the right track. We do a lot of matchmaking. So we've done a lot to P&G, to Unilever, with companies that came from Saudi Arabia. So I think there is a role and there is a part that we need to make people aware, but that's also something that we can do. Do your homework when it comes to reaching out. The opportunities are really big. We do need startups from outside. What we have is not enough. And we're going to say it. They're not enough. No matter how we push, we still need more startups to come. All these markets that are opening up today, its huge funds are actually matched to it. So in Hajj and Umrah, there is a fund. There's also another fund of funds, that are helping investors to invest and co-invest. The number of investments are increasing. So how do you, as entrepreneurs, find out? We'll be happy, of course, to share emails, if anything applicable. But I think that's what they need to do. There's a lot of homework to do in finding out the right entities to access and knock the doors.
Right, thank you. We're out of time, but Mark, Liam, Amal, Dr. Mohammed, I want to thank you for your valuable time. I do want to leave with this last word. All of us here on the stage are part and participant at Dhahran Techno Valley right across the bridge. For Bahrainis who are here, for Saudis, of course, anyone who has access to the kingdom, please come by. It's a community that we're building. We're trying to create an open innovation space, place for entrepreneurs, place for startups, large businesses operating, lots of opportunities, seminars, workshops, everything that we can build. You're part of our community as well. Again, thank you very much. Thanks to the hosts, and I appreciate your time in the audience.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.